Julian Thorn is the crown prince of Manhattan, and he is a certified psycho. He is also obsessively in love with me. On our wedding day, my sister Chloe showed up in her own wedding gown to crash it. She screamed that she was a protagonist, and that if she didn't marry my fiance, she would die. Julian, without blinking, just said, "Then die." His security team dragged her to the rooftop of the hotel. She looked down once and fainted clean away. Julian Thorn is New York royalty. Reckless, ruthless, and completely ungovernable. And for 1 year he was my quiet, secret boyfriend. The secret part was my idea. Julian hated it, but I always managed to put him off, saying the relationship was too new or not stable enough. On our first anniversary, I came home from a shoot, and Julian suddenly presented me with a stack of binders. "Alara," he said, "these are my companies, my properties, my cars, my private equity holdings." He had so many assets, it was absurd. He even owned a few small islands. It took him over 30 minutes to list everything. Goddamn capital. My eyes were burning with the sheer, blinding injustice of it all. "Julian, what is this?" "Alara, we've been dating for a year. We're stable. Marry me. When you do, I'm transferring everything into your name." With that, he got on one knee and produced a ring. I finally understood this was a proposal. The theme of this proposal, to summarize, was what's mine is yours, and what's yours is still yours. This kind of deal doesn't just happen. I didn't trust it. "You're just saying that." "No," he said, his face dead serious. "You won't go public because you don't feel secure. They say men turn bad when they get rich. If I give you all my money, you won't have to worry about me turning bad." That's not a guarantee. My sister Chloe has a thing for taking what's mine. In high school, in college, anytime a guy showed interest in me, Chloe would appear. And just like that, those guys would only have eyes for her. It proved that a man's loyalty has nothing to do with his bank account. This was the real reason I'd kept Julian a secret. I was terrified that if I brought him to a family dinner, he'd be instantly, magically charmed by Chloe. I'd finally found someone who chose me. I wanted it to last. "If I ever cheat on you," Julian said, his voice flat, "you have my full permission to confiscate my assets." "Confiscate your assets?" He coughed. "Castrate me." I was drinking water. I choked, sputtering and coughing. He rubbed my back, all concern. "Slow down." His deep-set eyes were full of genuine worry. I ended up saying yes. Man who is willing to bet his family jewels on his own fidelity. How could I not trust him? I mean, it definitely wasn't about the billions of dollars. Absolutely not. Ugh. This box of deeds is surprisingly heavy. The first thing Julian did after I said yes was post on Instagram a picture of the ring. The caption, "Mine." I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. He started posting 3 times a day, more reliably than he ate. "Wife is at work. Miss her. That 3 days until I see my wife." That woke up to this #blessed #no filter. The captions were so sappy I couldn't even read them. "He's Julian Thorn." The comment section was just a sea of fawning OMG goals. I was embarrassed he was defensive. "I'm making up for a year of lost time." I texted back, "Whatever makes you happy." That because of Julian's reputation, everyone in his circle knows not to leak his personal life to the press. So despite his non-stop posting, not a word of it hit page 6. Didn't stop at Instagram. He gave his entire company a 3-day paid holiday. His employees were ecstatic. The company-wide Slack channel blew up. "Thank you, Julian's girlfriend." Julian's girlfriend is a national hero. May Julian and his girlfriend live long and prosper. A happy CEO is a blessing upon us all. When I still hadn't told my family, Julian cornered me. "Alara, is it me? Am I not handsome enough? Not rich enough? Or am I not good enough?" As the heir to the Thorn Empire, his status was untouchable. His face was better than 90% of the actors I worked with as Ford. Not good enough. I shot him a look and rubbed my lower back. He had the nerve to ask, "I just want to tell my family in person." I said, "Before we make a public announcement in person." He blinked and then a slow, dangerous smile spread across his face. "You're taking me home?" "I didn't realize you were this serious about me." He'd misunderstood. I wasn't taking him home to introduce him. I was taking him home to test him. If he, like all the others, took one look at Chloe and was instantly bewitched, then this relationship didn't need to be announced. It needed to be terminated. But if he passed, if he could withstand her, then it was real. The monthly family dinner was on the 15th. We just stepped inside the front door when I heard voices from the living room. "Chloe, honey, you're saying your sister slept with an investor? And then she had the nerve to steal your role?" It was my mother. Chloe's voice was a pathetic little sob. "Yes. The director promised me the part. He said it was mine. Then right before signing, he said a new, massive investor came on board, and that he and Alara were involved. The investor made him give her the part." Was not what happened. The director and writer had approached me from the beginning. They said they'd written the script with me in mind. The day before I was supposed to sign, my sister heard about the film, met with the director, and suddenly he changed his mind. He told me Chloe just had the right energy. If she was right for the role, I wouldn't have cared. But the character was a cold, cynical detective. My sister has the face of a cartoon chipmunk. Chloe just has this magic. She makes people adore her, makes them want to give her whatever she wants. And the thing she wants most is whatever I have. I should have been used to it, but it still hurt. I've been in a funk for days. Julian, seeing me upset, found out why. To cheer me up, he invested an obscene amount of money in the film, on the non-negotiable condition that I was cast. I learned that day that my sister's magic charm was no match for a 9-figure check. She was furious, so she ran straight to our parents. My mother's voice was sharp. How did I raise such a shameless, disgusting thing? We gave her everything, and she repays us by becoming some investor's whore. And to do it to her own sister. Mom, Dad, don't be mad at her, Chloe said, her voice dripping with fake concern. She's just lost. This industry is so toxic. If you just talk to her, I'm sure she'll see the error of her ways. My father sighed. Chloe, if only your sister were half as decent as you. My mother snarled. I regret the day she was born. Julian's face went dark. His entire posture shifted, radiating a cold fury. Ivas, I'd seen the show 100 times. It was always my fault. I was always the one who had to apologize. To give my things to Chloe. I'd stopped being sad about it years ago. I'd given up on them. Julian started to step forward, and I squeezed his hand. Wait. Needed him to see this. To see my sister for what she really was. Maybe then he wouldn't fall for her. A moment later, the housekeeper saw us. Oh, Miss Alara, you're here. My parents hadn't seen Julian, who was slightly hidden by a large plant. My mother stormed over. Alara, you have the nerve to show your face? We don't have a daughter who sells her body. Get out. She pointed a finger at me. But before you go, you will call that director, give the role back to your sister, and apologize. I kept my voice level. I'm not sleeping with anyone. That investor is my boyfriend, and the movie was written for me. Sister, I heard you've been dating for over a year. Chloe said sweetly. If he's really your boyfriend, why haven't you ever brought him home? The director was clearly just making an excuse for you. My mother was even angrier. You ungrateful brat. Chloe is defending you, and you're still lying. You break up with that sugar daddy now, or you are no daughter of mine. Julian had heard enough. He stepped out from behind the plant, his voice like ice. Who exactly are you telling her to break up with? She doesn't have a sugar daddy. I'm her boyfriend. Sister, this is your boyfriend? Chloe's eyes locked onto Julian. I saw a flicker in them, a bright, hungry spark. He was interested. Julian Thorn is a big deal. Even my social climbing parents knew who he was. You're Julian Thorn? My father stammered. Julian gave a curt nod. My parents' entire world revolved around climbing a ladder that Julian's family had built. They looked from me to Julian, and their faces instantly melted into grotesque, fawning smiles. My mother grabbed my arm, her grip suddenly affectionate. Alara, darling, why didn't you tell us you were dating someone so wonderful? My mother's hand was on my arm, her fingers digging into my flesh with a grip that was supposed to be affectionate, but felt like a talon. Alara, darling, she cooed, her eyes darting nervously to the diamond watch on Julian's wrist. A Patek Philippe that cost more than this house. Why didn't you tell us? The silence in the room was heavy, suffocating. Julian didn't look at my parents. He didn't look at Chloe. He was looking at the hand my mother had wrapped around my bicep. Let go of her, Julian said. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't shout. The tone was conversational, bored even. But the threat in it was so visceral that my mother snatched her hand back, as if I were made of burning coal. We were just surprised, my father stammered, wiping sweat from his upper lip. Mr. Thorn, it's an honor. A true honor. If we had known Alara was bringing you. If you had known, Julian interrupted, finally shifting his gaze to my father, you wouldn't have spent the last 10 minutes calling my future wife a whore. Is that it? The color drained from my father's face. That was a misunderstanding. Sibling rivalry. You know how girls are. I don't, Julian said. He took a step forward, placing himself physically between me and my family. It was a wall of black cashmere and expensive cologne. I don't have siblings, but I do have lawyers. And I have a very long memory. From the corner of my eye, I saw Chloe. She wasn't cowering. Most people, when faced with Julian Thorn's cold rage, wanted to vanish. Chloe was fixing her hair. She adjusted the neckline of her blouse, pulling it lower. She walked forward, stepping into Julian's line of sight. She put on her best smile, the one that dazzled casting directors, the one that made high school boys dump me via text message. Julian, she said, her voice breathy, testing the name like it was a sweet on her tongue. I'm Chloe. I'm so embarrassed you had to see that. I'm so protective of my little sister. I was worried she was being taken advantage of. She reached out, her hand aiming for his forearm. You have to understand, family comes first. I held my breath. This was the test. The Chloe effect. It was supernatural. It was inevitable. Julian looked down at her hand as it neared his suit. He didn't flinch. He just looked at her face with an expression of clinical curiosity, like a scientist examining a particularly fascinating strain of mold. Do not touch me, he said. Chloe froze. Her hand hovered in midair. I have a very weak immune system when it comes to parasites, Julian continued, his voice flat. And you seem to be a particularly aggressive one. Chloe's mouth dropped open. The charm flickered and died, replaced by shock. Excuse me? You heard me, Julian said. He wrapped an arm around my waist, pulling me flush against him. Alara, are we done here? The air in this house is stale. It smells like mediocrity and desperate debt. I looked at them, my parents, terrified and calculating how to salvage the connection. Chloe, staring at Julian not with hatred, but with a terrifying, obsessive intensity. She wasn't used to being told no. She wasn't hearing no. She was hearing challenge. But for the first time in my life, the person standing next to me wasn't looking at her. He was looking at me. Yes, I whispered. We're done. Good. Julian turned to my father. If you contact her again, I'll buy the bank that holds your mortgage and foreclose on this house out of boredom. Do we understand each other? He didn't wait for an answer. He walked me out the door. The car ride back to the city was silent until we hit the highway. I was shaking. Julian pulled the partition up, separating us from the driver, and pulled me into his lap. Did I pass? He asked quietly into my hair. I let out a shaky laugh. You called my sister a parasite. I was being polite. I wanted to call her something else, but I didn't want to use profanity in front of your mother. I was raised with manners. I buried my face in his neck. Thank you. Don't thank me. I meant what I said, Alara. They don't exist to us anymore. But I knew Chloe, and I knew that not existing was the one thing she couldn't handle. The attack started 2 days later. It began with text messages. Alara, mom is sick. Heart palpitations. She's crying for you. I deleted them. Then came the press leaks. Julian's PR team intercepted a story sold to a tabloid. Julian Thorn's mystery girl, a family wrecker? The source was anonymous, but the details, twisted versions of my childhood where I was the problem child, were pure Chloe. Julian handled it the way he handled everything, with nuclear force. I bought the tabloid, he told me over breakfast one Tuesday, flipping a page of the Wall Street Journal. You bought the magazine? It was losing revenue anyway. I fired the editor and turned it into a catalog for agricultural machinery. The story is dead. I stared at him. That seems like overkill. There is no such thing as overkill when it comes to you. But Chloe escalated. Since she couldn't get to me, she tried to get to him. She started showing up places. It was uncanny. If Julian had a business lunch at Le Bernardin, Chloe would be at the bar. If he was attending a charity gala, Chloe was there as someone's plus one, wearing a dress that was slightly too white, slightly too bridal. She wasn't approaching him aggressively. She was playing the protagonist game. She would trip near him. She would drop her purse as he walked by. She was trying to force a meet cute. She was convinced that she was the heroine of this story, and that our relationship was just a misunderstanding, a plot device keeping her from her true love. One evening, I came home to our penthouse to find Julian pacing. He looked more agitated than I'd ever seen him. What happened? I asked, dropping my bag. Your sister, he growled. What did she do? She broke into my office building. She told security she was my future fiance, and that she had a surprise lunch for me. My stomach turned. What did you do? Julian stopped pacing. He looked at me, his eyes dark. I had her escorted out. By the K9 unit. The dogs? She refused to leave. She kept screaming that I was confused, that we had a connection. She grabbed my assistant's arm. I told security to treat her as a hostile intruder. He walked over to me, gripping my shoulders. Alara, she's not well. I've dealt with stalkers before. I've dealt with corporate spies. This is different. She genuinely believes she's in a movie. She's always been like this, I said, feeling the old shame creeping up. She thinks the world is a stage and everyone else is an extra. Well, Julian said, his voice dropping to that icy register. She's about to find out that the director is a tyrant. To solidify our standing, and to send a clear message to Chloe, Julian decided to go public. He didn't just post on Instagram this time. He orchestrated a moment. We walked the red carpet at the Met Gala. When the reporters asked about the ring, Julian didn't just smile. He stopped the entire line. This, he said, holding up my hand. It's an heirloom, but it pales in comparison to the woman wearing it. Alara is the only merger I've ever been interested in that's meant to last a lifetime. The clip went viral. Hashtag Julian and Alara trended for 3 days. Chloe's reaction was silence. No texts. No sightings. She's given up, I said tentatively a week before the wedding. Julian was reviewing the security protocols for the venue, the Plaza Hotel. Predators don't give up, Alara. They just wait for the prey to let their guard down. He tripled the security detail. He instituted a no list that consisted of one name, Chloe. If she steps within 500 feet of the plaza, Julian told the head of his security, a man named Graves who looked like he ate concrete for breakfast, I want her removed. I don't care how. Understood, sir. I mean it, Julian said. No scenes. No drama. My wife gets her perfect day. If anyone ruins it, I will ruin them. I felt safe. I really did. I forgot that in Chloe's mind, the climax of the movie always happens at the wedding. The day was perfect. The plaza ballroom was transformed into a forest of white wisteria and crystal. The air smelled of expensive champagne and victory. I wore a custom Vera Wang, sleek and architectural. I didn't want to look like a princess. I wanted to look like a queen. My parents weren't invited. They had sent a letter threatening to sue for emotional distress, which Julian's lawyers had framed and hung in the bathroom. I stood at the altar. Julian was there. He looked devastating in his tuxedo. His eyes were locked on mine, grounding me. You look, he whispered as I reached him, like the only thing that matters. The officiant began. We are gathered here today. The doors at the back of the ballroom didn't just open. They banged open with a sound like a gunshot. The music stopped. The heads of 300 of New York's elite turned. There, standing in the archway, was Chloe. She was wearing a wedding dress. Not just any wedding dress. It was a ball gown, massive and tool-heavy, with a tiara sparkling on her head. She looked manic. Her makeup was slightly smeared, her eyes wide and frenetic. Stop, she shrieked. Her voice echoed off the high ceilings. Stop the wedding. Julian didn't turn around. He didn't even blink. He just squeezed my hands tighter. Ignore her, he murmured to me. Graves is moving in. But Graves wasn't moving fast enough. Chloe was sprinting down the aisle. She had a manic strength to her. You can't do this, she screamed, tears streaming down her face. She stopped 10 feet from us, chest heaving. Julian, look at me. Julian slowly turned his head. His expression was bored. You're trespassing, Chloe. I'm saving you, she cried. She gestured to herself. Don't you see? It's me. It's always been me. I'm the protagonist. Alara is she's the background character. She's the villain trying to trap you. The crowd murmured. Phones were out. This was going to be everywhere. Chloe took a step closer, her eyes wild. The script says we end up together. If you don't marry me, if you marry her, I'll die. I literally cannot live in a world where I'm not the chosen one. I'll die, Julian. The room went dead silent. It was a threat of suicide, weaponized as a romantic gesture. It was the ultimate manipulation. Julian looked at her. He looked at the white dress that mocked mine. He looked at the tears that she had used to control everyone her entire life. He didn't signal the security guards to wait. He didn't try to talk her down. He didn't offer her help. He tilted his head, his face a mask of absolute, terrifying indifference. Then die, he said. It wasn't a question. It wasn't a challenge. It was permission. Chloe blinked. The air left the room. She had expected him to panic, to rush to save her, to fall into the role of the concerned hero. She had played this card 1,000 times with our parents. What? She stammered. You said you would die, Julian said, checking his watch. I'm not stopping you. In fact, you're interrupting my schedule. Graves. Graves and 2 other men materialized. They didn't grab her gently. They seized her by the arms of her stolen wedding dress. Get off me. Chloe screamed, kicking and thrashing. I'm the bride. I'm the bride. Take her to the roof, Julian commanded, his voice carrying over her screams. She needs some fresh air. And ensure she doesn't come back down until the police arrive. They dragged her out. Her heels left scuff marks on the white runner. Her screams of I am the main character faded as the heavy oak doors slammed shut. Julian turned back to me. He adjusted my veil, his touch incredibly gentle. Where were we? He asked the officiant. The officiant, pale and trembling, cleared his throat. I have the vows. Right, Julian said. He looked into my eyes, and the coldness vanished, replaced by that intense, obsessive warmth. Julian, take you, Alara. We found out later what happened on the roof. Graves told us. They had dragged her up to the terrace of the penthouse suite. Chloe had broken free, running to the ledge. She had climbed up, screaming that she would jump, waiting for someone to beg her to stop, waiting for the camera to zoom in. Graves had just stood there. Mr. Thorn said you're free to do as you please, Mississippi. She looked down. 12 stories down to 5th Avenue. The cars looked like toys. The wind whipped her veil, the one she'd likely stolen. The reality of the height, the indifference of the guards, and the sudden realization that there was no audience, no camera, and no script hit her. She looked down once and fainted clean away. She collapsed onto the gravel roof in a heap of white tulle. The police arrived 10 minutes later and arrested her for trespassing, harassment, and violating a restraining order. We were cutting the cake when the news came through that she was being held for a 72-hour psychiatric hold. A shame, Julian said, feeding me a piece of vanilla sponge. I was hoping for a longer sentence. She's sick, I said quietly. She's dangerous, he corrected. But she's no longer our problem. The honeymoon was on one of those private islands Julian had mentioned during the proposal of the binders. It was a week of sun, sand, and Julian turning off his phone. Something his board of directors probably thought was a sign of the apocalypse. On the last night, we were sitting on the deck of the villa, listening to the ocean. I have something for you, Julian said. He slid a thick envelope across the table. If this is another deed to a copper mine, I don't want it, I joked. Open it. I opened the envelope. Inside were legal documents. Transfer of title. What is this? Your parents' house, Julian said, taking a sip of wine. And the deed to the commercial space where your sister was trying to launch her lifestyle brand. I stared at the papers. You bought their house? I told them I would foreclose. I decided buying the debt was faster. I own it now, which means you own it. He leaned forward, his dark eyes glittering. I evicted them this morning. My breath hitched. Julian. They have been relocated to a 2-bedroom apartment in New Jersey. I paid the rent for 6 months. After that, they're on their own. As for Chloe, yes, I made a deal with the DA. We dropped the charges on the condition she enters a long-term care facility, a secure facility, in Switzerland. I'm paying for it. You're paying for her rehab? I'm paying for her exile, he corrected. She can't leave. Not for a long time. And there are no cameras there. No internet. No audience. Just therapy and silence. I looked at the documents. I thought about my mother screaming at me. I thought about Chloe trying to steal my life because she felt entitled to it. Why? I asked. Because I promised you, Julian said. He stood up and walked around the table, kneeling beside my chair. I told you that if I ever turned bad, you could take everything. But I haven't turned bad, Alara. I've just become efficient. He kissed my hand. They hurt you. They made you feel small so they could feel big. I have simply adjusted the scales. You are the queen, Alara. And a queen protects her realm. I looked at the ocean. I thought about feeling guilty. I waited for the pang of sadness from my parents, for my sister. It didn't come. All I felt was the warm night air, the weight of the diamond on my finger, and the absolute certainty that the man kneeling beside me was a psycho. But he was my psycho. Thank you, I whispered. Anything, he said, and I knew he meant it. Now come inside. I want to discuss the acquisition of a vineyard in Tuscany. I think you'd look good running a wine empire. I smiled. Only if I can fire people. Julian grinned, a sharp, dangerous, beautiful thing. That's my girl. The end.